Hello, welcome to today's FETC webinar. I'm Jennifer Womble, Conference Chair of the Future of Education Technology Conference. I am thrilled to bring you this dynamic expert panel and a great conversation today on how to submit your very best proposal to speak at FETC 2025. Before we begin, let me have some housekeeping notes for you. If you'll take a look at your dashboard, I'm going to describe to you some of the key things that you're going to want to be using tonight throughout the presentation. So on your dashboard, you can resize all of the boxes that you see there by using the corner, the top right corner of each of those boxes. You can resize it for the very, very best viewing. There's also a live attendee chat, which I can see over here. Yes, let's go. We are already introducing ourselves in that attendee chat. We want to make sure any questions that you have throughout the night, all four of us are going to be in there answering questions and helping you decide what you want to do for your presentations and help you in that process. So please feel free to use that the whole time. There's also a reaction module. That's the one with the smiley face in the middle of your screen. So please feel free to click on that and let our presenters know the things you like or you love or you want to clap for. That's really helpful when you're presenting in a virtual environment to get that feedback. So feel free to use those as well. Also want to let you know that you're going to be getting, if you would like, a CEU certificate for tonight's participation for an hour. And there's a box with a little ribbon on it. If you click on that, it tells you what you have to do to participate, and that will be emailed to you within 24 hours with a link. So we are recording tonight. There's a lot of things that we're going to go over, so we will be recording this. So expect an email tomorrow. It's usually about 24 hours. It will have both the recording and a link to your certificate. So you'll get both of those items. So we want to make sure you know that that's available for you. And help you out throughout the year by earning some of those CEUs that we all know we need. We also want to encourage you to share the link. So if you know someone who couldn't attend tonight, feel free to share that link with them so they can watch this at any time. People can continue to sign up and watch the recording as needed at their leisure. So we really are today making sure people can watch in their pajamas or in their comfort of their home. So hopefully you'll grab a cool drink and sit back. Here in Florida, it's 90 degrees and raining. So it's a nice evening to be inside and talking to some of my friends about my favorite topic, which is FETC. If you also have any problems throughout the entire time, if your screen or any of the modules are not working correctly, please use that Q&A. That will give us some information on the back end, and we'll be able to assist you on the back end using the Q&A on your right-hand side of your screen. We can also answer private questions. If you want to ask us something that you don't want everybody in the whole group to see in the attendee chat, we can answer questions on the back end. And I will take some time at the very end of the presentation and make sure that we've addressed all those questions. That's why we're here tonight, is to help you. So as we're about to begin tonight, I want to introduce three of my very favorite people in the whole world. They have all been presenters and featured presenters at FETC, and they are seasoned experts. You'll see on your screen on the left-hand side, there's a bio about each of them, and you can learn about their professional careers. But I want to start off tonight by thanking you for being here. You've all been through this process before, and you all have some insight, so I'm excited for you to share. But I want you to introduce yourselves for a few minutes and just basically tell us how you're involved with FETC or what you know about it, what your experience was like. And I think that will help our audience today to kind of know a little bit about your background. So I'm going to start with you, Dr. Gupa. Tell us about your experience at FETC.
All right, so last year was my first year going to FETC. I have been to other conferences. I've presented, and we'll talk about this later, at different national venues, and this blew me away. It is unlike any other national conference that I've attended. Right when you get there, the different feel is, it feels like all the tech people in the world all converged, to the same place, and for those couple days. And I always consider myself like this tech leader sort of thing in my own brain, I think. And I got there and I was just quickly out of my comfort zone. I was just like, where I was resting on my laurels of how good I am, I immediately said, oh, there are people here that are going to push me and motivate me and inspire me. And that's exactly what they did. I also kind of like the kind of person, the learning doesn't just happen if you're going by yourself or you're going with a team. It's not just going to the sessions, right? You also want to, like, I use that word, cross-pollinate. You want to somehow like connect with each other between sessions in the evenings. And I felt like everybody was in that same atmosphere. They were like, come with us. Kristen was actually one of them. Kristen was like adopted me into the group and spent time and kind of, introduced me to some other people, and I learned. So I think the idea of like coming back and not just having some knowledge, but talking with other people, having shared and talked with other people was phenomenal. The third part was the what's it called? The vendor fair?
Yeah, the expo hall.
The expo was again, I've been into, sometimes you are at national conferences and you actually on purpose don't want to go into those places because like it just is, I don't know. It's nothing that I usually like to go into. Like I said, I walked in there and just was blown away by what I thought would have been in there from a tech standpoint. And just starting to say like, oh my gosh, there are so many things for our students and our teachers we're not even aware of. And I would never have known that had I not walked in there and walked through it. And I got sucked in. Like you easily can spend a lot of time in there and just realizing we've got to push the conversation of what's best for our students. And unless you see it, you don't know. And so I walked away with this knowledge, with relationships, and inspired with, there are new resources that we need to bring back.
I love that. And what's really interesting and the thing that makes my heart sing is that you're talking about community. And I think the most important part about FETC is that one of the main goals for me designing the experience is creating community and creating people. Kristen might know this. What my favorite hashtag is, it happens in the hallways. And sometimes the best relationships and that key person that will help you integrate technology is the one you meet right there in the hallway and have that conversation in the room. So Kristen, share some of your insight from FETC too.
Thanks so much for having me. It's just great to be here. And I love FETC, I think because similar to what you were just saying, that, all of the best people from across the country, around the globe, are usually present at FETC. And it's just exciting for me to know that I'm going to see all of these people and learn from them and collaborate with them and just bounce ideas off each other. You did steal what I was going to say. It happens in the hallways because between the sessions, that's always when I get in these great conversations, and we're always talking, just what are we going to do next, or what can we come up with, or I had this idea I wanted to share with you. I'm so glad I saw you here in the hallway. So that's just, to me, very special. I feel like FETC to me represents family, and it's my ed tech family. And I know that they're all going to be there, and we're going to have a great time learning together, but also going to dinner. And just, to me, I feel like with my family, you can just be yourself and learn and have fun and enjoy your time together. And I just feel like that's very special because it's not me by myself, running to sessions. It's me meeting up with my other ed tech family, going to sessions together, saying, okay, well, let's go have dinner. Let's continue this conversation. So I just love that. I have actually been coming to FETC for 10 years. So that's super exciting. Yeah. And just, I always look forward to it. Just love everything about it.
And I think what's really interesting is that we've all had different experiences, but you came first as an attendee and then eventually started to present. So it wasn't like you were just coming to present. And so I think that's one thing that's really important, is that the presenters that are at FETC make a real effort to be a part of the entire event. You don't just present and leave, but everybody in the community is trying to have conversations throughout the entire event and really leverage that knowledge to build everybody and lift everybody up. So speaking of lifting everybody up, Okay, Matthew, you're going to have to share your experience. You're probably the best one of all of us lifting up different authors and presenters. You're always being so helpful. We're so grateful that you're in this community. So tell us a little bit about your experience too.
Well, now you have me blushing, but I appreciate that, because for me, one of the things that you said, so I'm Matthew Joseph, Assistant Superintendent here in Massachusetts. Go Boston. I saw a couple Boston peeps in there. But for me, one of the things that you said early on, Jen, was experience. And this is an experience. It isn't an event. It isn't a conference. It isn't a staff meeting. It is an experience. And what I really respect, that what Jen has grown over the years, is when I started to go, this is my 7th year. I also did a couple, 7th live, a couple virtuals, is that the different tracks of individuals. And you know, Neil was talking about, you know, his, you know, ed tech experience, and Kristen was talking about meeting her ed tech friends, but also it's administrators, it's leaders, it's principals, and it's coaches, it's librarians, and it brings everybody together, and it's really shares your experience, because when you work in a school or when you work in a district, you're never working by yourself. So you have to bring in other people's experiences. And for me, the power of FETC is learning from other people who have different experiences than me. I try not to go into sessions that just affirms what I'm doing. If I'm flying down to Florida, be like, yes, I'm really happy about the things I'm doing 3 hours away on a flight, then it wasn't impactful to me. I need to go in to see what our librarians are doing, our media specialists. Esports is something I'm looking to start up in our district. I don't know enough to do that. And that is the power for me at FETC, is to go meet individuals, learn from them. If it's your first time, it's your first year as a teacher, or if it's your retirement year, you're going to go away with something. And that's the other piece that I always find, is that whenever you leave, the next day you can implement something you learned at the event. And that's critically important.
That is, and that's actually my goal, is that everybody leaves with at least one nugget that they can take back and implement right away. So I love, you can tell that there's a variety of experiences here. I'm not going to delve too much into it, but I will say my first presentation was actually at FETC in 1993. So don't do the math on that, but I can just say this year coming up, this year coming up will be my 15th year with FETC, but before that I was 18 years in a school district. So I'm really proud to bring that to the table, because, and of course, as we're celebrating National Teacher Appreciation Week, you know, what a great time to be talking about the power of education. And I will say, in the last week, a couple of different times I've been interviewed by people, and I want you to think about to yourself, what would your answer be to this question? And I was asked the same question twice, and it was, how would you describe the education environment right now? And if you just think about it, there are so many things happening. So I'll tell you what my answer is, and you guys could put your answer in the chat, or, you know, share it with yourselves. But I'll say my answer was volcanic, because I have never seen education erupting with so many incredibly good ideas, incredibly new products. Just the excitement of some technologies that can do things that we've been waiting for, that promise of personalized learning and automatic grading, and things that can make the joy of teaching back in. But at the same time, we're dealing with retention and attendance issues and people retiring and turnover. So there's all kinds of things. It's a very, very interesting and exciting time. I happen to be a techno optimist. So I think we're going to find our way out of this by working together and coming up with solutions together, which I think is really bringing more value to FETC in our meetings each year. So I want to say that one of the most important things we do is bring together the greatest ideas from all over the country. So what we're going to go over today, I'll just quickly review, is we want to go over what the RFP process is and why we use that, how you can take your idea from being a spark of an idea or something you do in your district all the way into a full-blown session and then bring it to life at FETC. We want to talk about what the content guidelines are, how we select the content that's coming through, what kind of rubric, you know, what are we looking for in proposals, how the speakers are selected, and then how you can go through the actual application and answer those questions most effectively. So I'll say, holistically, as we take on this hour, what I want you to be thinking about is that everything in your submission is trying to help attendees know as much as they can about your presentation. We try to show as much as we can on the agenda, but you're informing them to make good decisions. So think about when you've been at professional development, how did you make the decisions you made? And then what kind of information would you share to encourage people to come to your sessions? So real quickly, I'll just give you the what to for on FETC. So for those of you who don't know, FETC began in 1981 in Tampa, Florida. It was actually a conference for IT directors to talk about how they were going to lay wire in school districts. So before the internet, there was actually FETC. And so it grew so quickly in a few years, it moved to Orlando. We've made a couple of field trips over the years, but in the last 44 years, a majority of our time is spent in Orlando, Florida, which we love, being at the Orange County Convention Center. It's beautiful light and great restaurants and great hotels and easy to get around. So we really enjoy being there. We definitely have attendees from all 50 states and 45 countries. So it has grown to a national and international event. It doesn't hurt that it's in January in Orlando. We like to bring the sunshine. But I will point out, I get this question a lot, is that a lot of people are there to learn new technologies and learn skills. Some of them are there to learn the updates on the technology they already have but haven't gotten. We have a lot of districts who are coming there to make budget decisions for the next fiscal year. Most school districts are working on finalizing their budgets in January by February. So they're looking at products, and then we have companies bringing new products to market. So there's a mixture of both skill development and that networking. I love the trilogy that Neil talked about. All the different aspects of education are kind of coming to life at this time. But I will say the whole thing is live. There's no virtual component. So even though we did have virtual during COVID, we do have this as a face-to-face live event. And I think some of the things that you're hearing from each other and the sharing that we're having is the experience of having those relationships being built face-to-face. And so the power of this type of learning for adults is really powerful. So in the past, I do keep track of the speakers and kind of a profile of them. It changes year to year. There's typically around 600 speakers selected, just so you know. So it's a wide group. Those are presenters and co-presenters. They come from many different countries, as you can tell. They come from many different states, as you can tell. They also have different roles in the school. So yes, you'll see a superintendent presenting. You'll see library media specialists presenting. You'll see teacher aides. There's a wide variety from lawyers all the way to people who are working on facilities management. So we see a lot of different roles that are presenting. So there's no one single role that there is. I will say a lot of them are certified now. I'm excited to see all the different certifications that people are getting in technology. Many of them have their PhD, but many don't. So don't feel like there's any particular type. And the other thing I want to point out is that this diversity is what makes our content so rich. The diversity of the speakers and where they come from and their perspectives are really important to me, that we have a speaker profile that's diverse in nature. And so one of my jobs is to lift up speakers and make sure that we're promoting them and what they're doing and what they're sharing throughout the year. So you'll see me bragging on these authors throughout the year and the work in districts to try to really bring to life how ed tech is impacting in different districts. One of the things I do want to say is that although there is this really diverse speaker profile, when your presentation is reviewed, your information about the speaker is not with it. We do what's called a blind read, which means we only read the information about the session and the speaker's name is not associated with it. So when those presentations are reviewed, just know we're not looking at the person behind the presentation. We look at each presentation individually and the content of that and what it's going to deliver to the attendee. We collect speaker information because we use it for marketing, for your headshot online and your social media, but we're not collecting that as part of the review process. So I want to just be really clear about that. Not every event does selection that way. So I wanted to be really clear about it. So one of the things I think we started to tap on a little bit is, why you want to go on this journey of applying to speak and coming to speak at FETC, and what the value is both to your school district and your school and your staff. It's a real proud moment to have people from your school district present on a national stage. I remember my first time just like yesterday. And so I think there's a lot of benefits to it. I'm going to turn to you, Neil, because I know you're one of our latest additions to FETC, and just say, what kind of personal value do you feel like you got out of presenting at FETC?
Yeah, and I kind of said that before, but I want to extrapolate that in the sense of, I think that, usually I kind of, in my head, I think I'm going to go there. I'm doing this amazing work in my district. I'm going to share. I love that you're asking this question because, keep your eyes and ears up sort of thing, because you're going to get flooded with ideas that are going to happen. For me personally, I was blown away at the conversations about even how you take something like STEM and you think about technology and you think about things of like space shuttles and rockets and drones and that kind of stuff and whatever. And there's some great products and school districts that were sharing things that they were working in that place. But the kind of the ecology part to it and the sustainability section of the vendor fair and how the teachers were talking about how they were incorporating that into their classrooms blew me away, because I'm in a school district that is in a community that with park systems and river systems and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I never even thought of coming to a conference, a tech conference, and being in a place of how you can kind of merge those two things together. And so being able to grab brochures and take them back and talk with people about those things. I know that I was able to grab go to a couple of the sessions and then be able to go again. You're going back to your district and saying, I've got this, like, I'm using this dated word of Rolodex of, going back, and now I've got 5 people that you need to share with and talk with, and how do we help bring them to our district, and maybe we set up some Zoom calls for that. And so we already kind of had some beginning work around that area. And I think just for this idea about inspiration, I last year went by myself from my district, but I'm bringing the team with me next year because it is one way that you can go and bring the information back, but it's hard to still share those things. And so for me, the personal value is bringing a team along, if you have the ability to bring a team along with you for that camaraderie, for that energizing part that comes along with it.
I think that's a really good point, especially when you're trying to tackle the expo hall. And it's always more fun to be at happy hour with the team too, and dinner and reflecting. I think some of the times we have the most personal growth at the conference is reflecting in the evenings when we're having those conversations. Kristen, yes, I know you've had a couple of years here presenting, and you've had a couple of years here where you weren't presenting. So you've done it both ways. So what do you feel are some of the benefits of presenting at FETC?
I definitely feel like the connections just all over the place, whether it's in a session or in the vendor hall, that is huge. I also feel like I'm one of those people where I try very hard to include everyone. And I did notice in the chat that some people were like, yeah, but what about introverted people that, maybe that's not on their to-do list to go and meet everyone in the vendor hall. And I would just say, definitely, if you see me or you want to connect ahead of time, I would love to meet up with just you individually and walk you through some things. I know that for me, it wasn't a big deal to come by myself, but for others, it might be a little bit more challenging. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, I would love to do that. I know that one of my favorite things that I did just this past year was Jen said, hey, I'm going to do this new thing where it's like vendor hall tours. Would you be interested? And I was like, I don't really know what you're talking about, but sure, why not? I'm always up for an adventure. Okay. And I loved it. It was so much fun. And I was asking some of the participants that came on my little mini tour of my favorite 10 vendor stops, well, why did you decide to do this? And most all of them were, when I walked in here, this is huge, all of these booths everywhere. I had no idea what I needed to see, who I needed to see, and it was overwhelming. So I thought if I signed up for this tour, you would at least show me your 10 favorites. And that was exactly what Jen had in mind. So absolutely, I would suggest like writing that down. Maybe if you are considering, coming and you're not really sure that you want to get to the vendor hall tours. And I would definitely say that a big benefit is I love to give back in education. So just that is a way for me to give back to others. I have been told by teachers and by different people at our district office that I have a gift of taking big things and breaking them down into very small, digestible pieces. So I love being able to do that with technology, because I know that that's not everybody's, they might love the idea of using Minecraft, but they're like, I have no idea how to use that in my classroom. So I love doing sessions like that for rather it's district office folks or teachers or, who it might be in the district. Love doing sessions on that kind of, here's something big, let's break it down and how you could use it, how that would be helpful to anyone in your district. And I would definitely say that another benefit is, depending on where you're coming from your district, maybe they're not real excited to sign off on you going and spending all of this money, that if you can present one, that might just help kind of sweeten the deal that you're presenting, not just attending. And, it helps your district save a little bit of money in that realm. So I feel like those are my big takeaways on benefits for presenting at FETC.
And I can definitely attest to that all three of you are servant leaders in more ways than we can even count here in helping others and definitely servicing this education community. And I love, this is probably, I'm stealing this from Matthew, but he always uses the hashtag better together. And I will definitely say we are all better together at the conference and supporting each other before, during, and after. So I love that somebody wrote in the chat about EduGuardians. That has been like the funnest group to be in this spring, as they're sharing a bunch of AI tools and AI things to do. And we're doing Tech Tuesday t-shirts. So there's a lot of groups online that get formed where they actually meet up at the conference, and then they continue those conversations year round. So you're actually supported year round. So webinars like this that we're having, year round, and communities and social media that can really support you. And maybe you're the only person in your school that does your job, which happens sometimes too, or teaches your subject. That was definitely me when I taught AP psychology. I was the only one. So I would go and meet people that had ideas that we could share in it as well. So, okay, let me let you know. A lot of people say, why do we have this process? What is this RFP process? So the request for proposals process is out there actually in order to be more equitable. Everybody has equal access to the platform. Everybody has the ability to share tools. It's accessible to people around the country. As you can see, all the Canadians that are here tonight in this webinar. So what happens is we leave this open. It'll be open until June the 2nd, and it enables anyone in the public to submit. There's no regulation or guard. There's no age limit or school. It's public, it's private, parochial. We have all types of school, charter schools, online schools that attend FETC. So this is really, in my eyes, a way to actually enable equity, is to have it open to everyone. And everyone has, access to how they can do. So we'll have everybody put their applications in, whether they're the CEO or a classroom teacher. They all will get reviewed in the same manner. And of course, we're leveraging that technology by using a system of online scoring that helps us. So we're actually using the technology and walking the walk and talking the talk that we do. So where does it all begin? So a lot of times people will say, I have a lot of ideas, or how do I know if something in my school that we're doing is worth sharing or not? Like, the problem is a lot of us are in silos and we don't share enough. So we don't know that this really dynamic program that you're doing in your school. I just saw yesterday online where Glenn Robbins and his school district, we saw a hologram of a Holocaust survivor who was speaking back to the students using generative AI. I don't know anybody in the country who's doing that. So I would love to have, stories like that. So, sometimes there's great ideas like that, but sometimes it's ideas about, how do I just engage my third graders in literacy? So there's a wide spectrum of content and ideas and strategies that are going to be shared. So a lot of times it can start from an idea that you've seen that works. A lot of classroom teachers, you are researchers. You are the greatest lovers of learning that are out there. So when something happens and a kid gets excited, that's something we need to share. If there is a development or a program in your school, if it's a STEM program, if it's girls coding, if there's something that you've seen it's super effective. We know the data now on esports programs and helping kids get engaged and improve their attendance rates. Have you noticed the insights from your own school? Are you using some new technologies that you might want to share what's happening? We have a virtual reality school in Florida where every course is taught with virtual reality. So we want to see what that looks like and share those stories. So there's a lot of different stories. Sometimes it's an authentic story of how technology has impacted a family, some communication from a school, a student. Sometimes it's deep dive case studies that we're looking at. There's really not a perfect answer for where your idea might come from, but it's something that you feel powerful in sharing, that strategy could help someone else. So is there anything that you've learned, some skill or strategy or a pedagogical approach that someone else could utilize to improve teaching and learning? So at the end of the day, when we're looking at all these proposals, what we're trying to get to the root of is in this proposal, we're going to be asking, does this idea transform education? Is there some way that this idea transformed a student or a teacher or education in some way? So in order to help you kind of define your why, as Barbara Bray would say, I'm going to turn it over to Matt for a few minutes because he has a really good approach about taking your idea from beginning to making it in the position where you're ready to submit it as a session. All right, Matt, you ready to share?
I'm ready to share. And I think one of the things for me is, as we talked about earlier, as Jen said, we are better and stronger together, and having that team. Somebody wrote in there earlier about bringing a team. Neil was talking about it. And I think the more people you have, I was very fortunate this year, our X Factor team was together and sharing. And one of the reasons we put this up there was that we all have different strengths. And one of the things that inspires me is going to sessions where people have different strengths than me. And when you start looking through what you want to present, it's what are you passionate about and what are your strengths? Why do you want to present? If it's just to get your name in the program or free registration, it will come through when you're writing the proposal. It's, I've presented 7 different times. I don't think I've done the same thing twice because this profession evolves. And for me, one of the whys for me is I'm better at my job in my district when I have something I can share with other people. Because one of the things that Jen said earlier is experiences. This is not a sit and get, a shut up and listen. This is a come and be together. And when I'm excited about something, I share it out and people also have that conversation. So for me, my biggest why is I want to get better at what I'm doing for my actual job and use some of the individuals who come to the session to see what they're doing around the same topic. And one of the things I learned a long time ago is if you go in and try to do 10 or 15 different things because you want to showcase everything you know, that's not why you should present. Having something, you only have 45 minutes. You go in, you want to know why you're there, and your enthusiasm will be contagious. So really drill down. One of the things my professor said at Boston College, if we had more time, we'd write less because you want to get to the point and be real clear with what it is, your purpose is that you want to present. So when you have that, you kind of look at who's your audience. And again, depending on what your why is in the topic, your audience could be different. And I like to challenge myself where I haven't been in a classroom in 19 years. I've been a principal and then central office. So I want to make sure that I'm always doing something for educators because I haven't taught. And for me to stand in front of teachers to run a topic by that I think will help my own district, but also teachers who come here, I'm getting instant feedback. I want to work in front of teachers. I want to see what they're doing, how this resonates with them. I also, being in a leadership perspective, I want to work with leaders as well. So those are 2 of the typical groups that I typically like to put on my proposals that are my audiences. Now, other people might come to the session, and that's why there's multiple tracks. But the clearer you are with who's going to be the audience, the better your description will be to know what they're going to get out of it. So it really goes around the clarity of who's in front of you when you're presenting. And then it gets down to the what. The what's not the first thing. It's not like, oh, I know this tip or this trick or this is something I've tried with my students. That comes after, because then you hone it down. Because, you know, I know we're going to do a session later on if you are presenting that about how to create a presentation. It's not a 45-minute monologue. If you are presenting, what it is you're presenting is an interactive conversation. It is an interactive, sometimes it's hands-on learning. So what you're presenting is critically important, not to just write 2 pages on your proposal of why it's important and here's what I'm going to do. Get to the point of what the impact it's going to make for the students. In my introduction, when we talked about our experiences, my big takeaway from FETC is I always can bring something back the next day. And within your proposal writing, state it. We're not in the business of tricking people. If you come to this session, participants will leave and be able to input what you're doing. It also helps you build your session. So really define what it is that's going to be there, because if you get accepted and people start leaving because the doesn't match what you wrote in the proposal, that's not a good feeling. Just want to be honest with you. And the clearer you are on what you're presenting will help you present and create your session when you get to that point. And the last thing for me is I want to go to a session that I leave like, whoa, I learned something. And I know I'm very fortunate that I'm going to be able to see Kristen present in 3 weeks. And I always have left with like, wow, I haven't thought of that, because her skill set is different than what I typically present on. So I always take something away from the work that she does. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even think you could do that, because that's not necessarily the circles that I collaborate with in my district. So what is it you're going to leave that participants are going to be talking about to you later? This might sound a tad pompous in the sense of like, oh, well, no. You want to blow people's socks off. And what are the possibilities that you are going to bring to your session that people are going to leave like, wow, this is really exciting, because that ties it into the why. When you know your why, you're going to come back to your wow. And through that, you're going to be able to drill down in your writing so that it jumps off the page when somebody reads it, because your goal is that somebody reads this and they're like, wow, I want to see this. And that's how proposals get moved forward. It's not your long research, your dissertation. It's how are you making an impact to individuals that have paid money to fly down to Florida or drive there and come away with knowledge that you are going to present. And I think, Jen, that's one of the things that you've also helped me from way back when you saw me presenting here at MassQ. One of the tips that you said is it's a different stage and people don't know who you are. How are they going to leave remembering the session and content that you did? And I think that's a piece of feedback as you write it. Go with that same mindset.
I think that's super interesting, and it's coupled at the exact perfect time as what somebody just wrote in the attendee chat, a comment about imposter syndrome. And the reality is the best stories are the authentic ones from the classroom. The things that we learn the most from are the IT director who's been through the hurricane and knows how to get IT done, in an emergency situation. So there isn't any imposter. You all are doing the hard work in education every day. So you are the superstars. You're the people we want to learn from. So there's definitely, you belong there, I guess is the word I should say, is that this is exactly where you belong. People in education who have a story to tell, who have something to share, this is where you belong. So definitely don't feel like you're an imposter, and definitely be yourself. And I think there's an interesting thing that you mentioned, Matt, was about if somebody leaves the room. So every year I lead a session for the new attendees at FETC, and I tell them, if you walk into a space or a room and this session is not for you, and the title doesn't match what the session says, or for some reason you're not completely happy, please leave the room, because I want you to get every dollar and every minute of your PD budget squeezed out. And I want you to have the most professional growth that you possibly could have at our event. So we want to make sure that we're matching what the content is to what your needs are. So the only way we can do that is to provide attendees a list of the sessions and workshops based on the information you give us. So it is really essential that when you are putting in your submission, that you are really honest and clear and transparent about what people will learn from your session, what the expectation of the outcomes is, so that they can make good choices about if that's what is really going to fit their needs. So before you go online and click the button at, FETC.org and you click speak at FETC, it's good to have some things ready. So what you want to have ready, we're going to ask you a set of questions about the presenter. As the presenter, I need your headshot. I need your title. I need your email. I need you to use an email that's not your school email, because I need you to check it in the summer, and I need it to not get blocked by spam. And if there's more than 10 people from your school district, it's going to get blocked by Barracuda. So please use your personal email. I'm going to want your social media so we can make sure all throughout the year that we're recognizing you. If you want, you can share all kinds of things. You could share information with me. You can give me video links when you've presented before. You can tell me what other presentations you've done at other conferences. We ask you a lot of information in your bio just to kind of get to know you so that we can help promote you after your session is selected. But then the essentials are, we need a title. The title is so important. Please think through the title as much as you can with a colleague, a friend, a spouse, a neighbor, somebody who doesn't know about education. So think about when you're in the grocery store and which magazines catch your eye. What articles do you want to pick up, right? Because you can only be 10 words. And that's because that's the amount of words that fit across the mobile app so that a person can see your whole title on one line. I want people to be able to see your title and make a decision without it wrapping and going to another page where you might lose their attention. Then you want to think about your description. And I know everybody wants to use ChatGPT or something to write your description. That's perfectly fine if it's editing for you, like Quillbot. But the essence of your description needs to be exactly what people are going to learn from you, what they're going to walk away knowing and being able to do as a result of your presentation. So if you need those help with Quillbot or something, making it shorter, more concise, that's fine. But make sure those words are authentic, because we want to be really fair to attendees and actually present what we say we're going to present. I will ask you what ed tech products you're using in the presentation. And we show that on our agenda because we want, when people are making a selection about your session or workshop, to know either they already have that tool, or they can get that tool, or they can go visit that tool on the show floor and learn more about it. So I'm going to ask you that question. And also, I definitely will want you to add co-presenters if you're interested in having co-presenters. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But you want to have all these things gathered together. There is no limit on the number of proposals you can do. You can submit. We have people who submit as few as 1 and people who submit as many as 30, right? So there's a wide variety that doesn't increase your chances by doing more. It's about the quality of that application. And then there is no charge to speak at FETC. We don't charge you to apply. As a matter of fact, I use a lot of my budget to pay for all of the lead presenters to have a free registration so that you get the same benefit of the conference as the people who are coming. So everything that's involved in the event, from the lunch meals that we offer on Thursday, the happy hours that we do on Wednesday, all of the benefits of the event are given to the speakers, as well as the attendees. So I want you to be a full participant in the event as well. So I want to make sure that you have that registration. So there are probably some tips and tricks here. So I haven't had to apply in a while, in about 15 years. So Kristen, do you have any suggestions for people who are getting ready to do this application process, and maybe some things they should keep in mind?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely keep a document on my laptop that has all of that pertinent information so that I can quickly update that just when things change. And so I always have that available. And I also keep a running list on my phone of my bio so that I can quickly make notes about it. And that I just constantly have the most current bio at the top of that running list. So that makes that very simple. I also use Linktree, and that way you can have all of those different social media, your links to the actual location in one spot with Linktree. And I have that Linktree inside of that document. And keeping your headshot on that document as well, keeping it updated so that it does actually look like you is very helpful. And I think there was one other, but I can't remember what it is right now. But yeah, those are my big takeaways and tips to try to make that a little bit easier and to kind of always keep it in your mind. I also keep a running list, that was what it was, in my notes on my phone of session titles and maybe just a little bit about them, because I'll be teaching, adults or teaching students, and they'll just say something and that'll just like stick in my head. And I'm like, I'm going to put that in my notes to try to make that, that's just something that I liked. Something was said that I liked. And I just kind of keep that a running list of those ideas.
And will you help attendee by putting in Linktree down in the chat? So some people were saying that they like that, just to add that in there. Now, Neil, I saw you shaking your head. Do you have some tricks here and best practices? I know you've spoken at other events too. So how do you do it? How do you manage it?
No, I love everything that's been shared. I just want to share one thing, and maybe this goes back to that statement about imposter syndrome, and because that really stuck with me, because I think, and my response was, I don't know if we ever get over it. And I think that's just a real statement, right? I think it's and Matt, you said this, and then Jen, you talked about it too, of what the attendees will learn. It's okay to don't feel like, and I'm going to say this, don't say I'm just a teacher. I'm just a this. I've only been in one district. I've only have 3 years experience. Please don't, if you go into that mentality, I think that's when you kind of defeat your own self. You've experienced something, you've gone through something, and you're the expert of what you've gone through, right? Like nobody else has. And so be okay with that. But I think what ends up happening is, well, then you sometimes think well, now I have to be this, I'm speaking at a national conference. So now I've got to write this for superintendents and tech directors from all around the nation. And then all of a sudden it kind of gets out of your comfort zone and maybe out of your wheelhouse. And then you get a little bit lost and flustered, and then it does become unwieldy. So I'm going to say, stay in your lane, almost put your own guardrails to say, and I think that Jen, is this another thing where you'll kind of click the boxes of, this is for teachers, this is for whatever, and be okay for that. Don't feel like you've got to check all the boxes, that this presentation is for everybody in the whole district. Be okay in saying this, and that's part of that description, that this is kind of the sweet spot of the people, and then they're not going to leave either. But it's when you almost defeat yourself by thinking you've got to, talk about things that maybe are outside your scope.
Yeah, definitely don't talk about things outside your scope. And I love the point that we were just in a webinar with Carl Hooker the other day, and he said, I am not an expert on this. I'm just telling you what I've learned. And that's really the truth, is that we're continuously learning in this learning model, that we are all in this journey of life. And so, here's what I've learned, but now tell me what you've learned too. And so I think that's a really important piece that you're saying there. The other thing that, Neil, I just can't harp on enough is that there are people here who, a lot of them are the only person in their school who does what they do. If you are a library and media specialist, if you work with neurodiverse students, if you are an autistic teacher aide. So when you are writing about what is important for your students and the development of teaching and learning, there are people like you in other schools and districts. And we're trying to find those and kind of bring those gems out and bring them into the light too. So please don't think just because you do something that you might be the only person in your school. There's other people who come to national conferences because they're the only person in their school in that area too. Also, don't think that you have to talk about the most popular topic. I can already tell you I'm going to probably get 1,000 descriptions of some AI something, right? So that's going to be what's happening. But what are we doing with that? What pedagogy is behind? What is working? What's not working? Sometimes the best sessions are what's not working, so definitely, take a step back. Don't think you have to talk about the most popular thing, because definitely not everyone, as we know in education, it's a little bit glacial in the amount of change that we do each year. So not everybody's on the same pace. And a lot of schools are just now starting to use AR and VR because they just got the tools to maximize it. Some schools are just now one-to-one, even though we thought we solved that with COVID. So there's people in different times and spaces with technology. So don't think that anything you're doing is not special. What we were really looking for is what's improving student engagement and teaching and learning. So just really always keep that at the forefront. And you really can't go wrong. I really promise you, you really can't. So one of the things, we've kind of already touched on this a little bit, but when you're on a national stage, I will say there are some things that we're looking for and we take really serious. Is this presentation have actionable insights? Are there things attendees are going to learn from your session that they can take back and use right away? That's really important. We get 1 year, one chance with those students. We want to do our very best for them. So we want to make sure that we can share implementations that can be taken into action right away, right? We want it to be something transformational, something that's going to make a change in a student or a teacher or an administrator. So we want to make sure that we're creating and sharing those types of experiences. We definitely love the stories and sessions where there's some unexpected discoveries. Like we were trying esports, we had no idea it would improve the graduation rate. We had no idea 90% of these kids were never an extracurricular and they now have a best friend. Like those kind of unexpected discoveries, whether they're social emotional or leadership or CTE focused, there's no wrong answer. You know, those are always the great stories we love. And we definitely, despite being a technology conference, the human-centered connection stories are always the strongest ones. The ones, you know, where students were able to make a difference with their community, to make a difference in changing something in the environment and having some impact in some different ways. That those human-centered connections are really vital to our program and to kind of how we all feel at the conference. And then also making some connection from what problem did you have or what were you trying to do and then how did you solve it? There's a lot of challenges that we all have, and we could all probably make a list right now in school districts around the country of the challenges we have. But if you took on a challenge and you've kind of come up with some way to solve it or something that's helping in some way, that's what we need to share. We need to amplify your voice so that more people hear that great work and they can then, you know, model that in their schools. I will say that we always are looking for something that's fresh and different. If you are a presenter who wants to apply and presents the same thing at 12 conferences, the chances are that's not something that we want. We want something that's fresh. I'm not saying you have to redo everything, but I'm saying we want to hear new news. We want, you know, the information for the attendees not just be something that was recycled from somewhere else. And so that's really what the attendees are looking for. And my job is to serve those attendees. So I want to make sure they're getting the very best high quality content and the best ideas that are out there are kind of curated for them. I do want to let you know, and I just need to say it is a BYOD event. So people bring their own computers to present. They bring their own computers to participate in workshops. So I'm just making sure everybody's aware of that. We supply the Wi-Fi, you supply the computer. So those kind of works out. So I'm often asked this question a lot, you know, is it better to present by yourself or with a group or with a panel? And then who should I invite to present with me? And, you know, really there's not a wrong answer. I do want to say we love to have thought leaders and we love to have people in the industry who are doing research and have these really great pieces of data to share. But we also love people who are practitioners and are doing great things in the classroom with students. We love people who are high profile, but we also love people who've never presented before. There's always first time presenters each year. So that's always super exciting for me. And then probably my favorite group of people to have present with you are thinkers and doers. People who are thinking about what's happening and then they're doing it and trying it. And if it works or doesn't, they're willing to share. So there really isn't a wrong answer. I'm going to kind of turn to you guys a little bit here. I know, Neil, last year, I think you were on a panel. You were also on a workshop and you were also in a session with a co-presenter. So do you have any advice about how many speakers or how to prepare differently for that?
Yeah, so yes, all the above I was a part of. I guess I would say, again, it just depends on the audience. It depends on your presentation. I wouldn't say that there is one's better than the other. It just depends. So maybe some things for you to be thinking about is, you know, might it be okay to share differing perspectives? Like, I'll be honest with you, I got onto one presentation and the co-presenter and I like disagreed with each other, like in a healthy way, like, because again, it all can't be done the same way between different districts. And it was healthy to show, and this goes back to Jen, what you said of like, it's good to show non-examples. So here's what worked in my district. And then somebody else shared, well, I had to change or modify because we had these constraints in my district. And it became a good conversation. And there were a lot, I think people appreciated that because it also shows there's no one right answer. And we were having that healthy conversation. But equally, it can work well with presenting by yourself. If you have a panel or a group, I will say, make sure that you really practice it and that it's integrated. I'm going to say this. Some people will think that I'll do the first 5 slides, you do the next 5 slides, and it comes off that way and it's not authentic. People are just standing up and sitting down and it's my part, your part. And it does lose a feel. I will say that. The ones where people are playing off of each other and you can tell that they've practiced and rehearsed and almost finishing each other's sentences and they enjoy working with each other, that's what comes off well. 2 people that are really good friends but really didn't practice, you can see that come to life. So, we're all giggling because I think we've all experienced it on both sides. So just make sure that if you're really going to do that, this time investment piece that we owe to our attendees, then your audience, is that you really kind of invest that time to it.
You're exactly right. And I'm glad you said that, Neil, not just me, but because it really is not fair to attendees to not be prepared and not to put your very best, presentation forward. So I appreciate you saying that. I'll also say on that same line, because we don't know who's putting forth each application, because we read them blind. Sometimes they are people from companies. Sometimes they are people who partner with schools or do case studies. But this is not the place for a sales pitch. Companies can buy sessions and they can present those separately. That's available through the sales team. But this call for paper that we're talking about is not anything that's sold. So we definitely want to make sure this is not a place for a sales pitch. Now, will everyone talk about a technology or a company or a product? Yes, I hope so, because we want to know. The most important thing in education is trust. So I want to know if you tried something and it worked. I trust you now. I want to go and try it. So it's definitely fine to talk about products and definitely fine, to talk about in that way, but it's just not a sales pitch. And I will say in our workshops, which are 2 hours intensive hands-on, those people expect to be trained in a skill. They're paying extra. They're paying for either a premium or paying for a workshop ticket, and they're there to learn a skill. So if you are, applying to do a workshop, I do pay a stipend of $200 to each person that does a workshop, because I want that value to be good. I want to pay you for your planning time so that you are producing something that's high quality for our attendees, that, that they're in turn paying for as well. But you should know that it's important that what you're doing is providing a skill or a conversation or an outcome. If you're going to do a workshop, it is more intensive there. So when you get on that form, you go to the FETC page, you click Speak at FETC, you scroll down the bottom and you start the process. One of the things we ask you to do is select the track. So this is designed to help our attendees make selections about what fits and what's the best content for them. Some people will go to an event and they'll see hundreds of sessions and thousands of workshops, and it's hard to pick. So what we really want to do is help attendees make a journey through our experience, and that journey should be things that match their needs and their role. So you can select the district leadership. So these are all pretty clear. There's more of a definition for them on the website that you can look through. But these are our C-level leaders who have different expectations and roles than our school leaders. Our school leaders and our principals and our department chairs, they have a different role as well. And so the things in the leadership training and the topics that they're discussing, it may be the same topic. So there may be cybersecurity or AI that runs across every one of these tracks. But how these people encounter it and what they're doing and the decisions they're making about it to impact students are different. Our IT leaders are looking at these topics, the CIOs and the IT leaders and directors from your districts, the classroom leaders, the teachers every day who are leading their classrooms inside and out. We definitely want to hear, what's happening there. Our coaches are essential. I'm often asked, what's the one session that's always the hardest to find? And it's coaching sessions with teachers who are difficult. because nobody wants to do that. So, but it's definitely a skill to be taught, right? So that's an important piece for us to include in technology integration. This year, our brand new track, which I'm so excited about, is our esports leaders. And our esports has grown at FETC so much since 2020 that they have grown into their own track this year. And we're really excited about that. There's an interactive area on the show floor where students are playing. There's a theater just for esports. So we're excited to add those to our menu of choices, I guess. And then our inclusion leaders in assistive technology, our equity leaders, our leaders. We have partnerships with CAST, and we're doing lots of interesting things with special education and technology. And then, of course, our library leaders, which are actually the whole school leaders and sometimes the IT leaders too, right? So you just have to select what it best matches. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does help our attendees. So please really be thoughtful in that selection. Don't try to second guess and say, well, they probably don't have enough of this or they don't have enough of that, so I'm going to check this box or that box. That doesn't work. I got enough of all of them. So don't think that's gonna help in any way. The other thing that's really important to think about is the presentation format. So I do ask you your first choice and your second choice. And we do always try to get your choices and your preferences in there. Sometimes we do have to ask you or invite you to do it in a different way if there's not enough slots available, or if we feel like what you have would be really better for a workshop. So there's a lot of different presentation formats. And I think a lot of you all have probably experienced many of these, but even keynotes apply through this same portal. We talked a little bit there about equity. So our keynotes apply the same way the people who are doing the mobile mega share apply, the same way the showcase folks are applying. So I will say most people are used to a standard 45-minute session, and that is the way our concurrent sessions work. That is the way a lot of the sessions work with the theaters, where you're standing up lecture style. We have a very high request in our community for conversation-based learning. And a lot of people in their personalized learning approach is to have conversations in a smaller group. Our leadership roundtables are very popular because people want a smaller group to discuss hot topics with and also implementations. So those leadership roundtables are really essential. And it is a little bit of a different style, but it is a little bit longer to enable more of a conversation. I'll also say we've talked a little bit about workshops already, but Mobile Mega Share is on the Tuesday. It'll be on January the 14th. It's a pre-conference activity where people get to rotate around a room. Think of that old pedagogy style of where we rotated for different stations. And so in that method, you do the same session, but 3 different times because you have different people rotating to you. So that one's a little bit different. It's more skill-based. It's more app-based typically. And then showcase sessions are the same way. A showcase session is where we have one session on a topic, but in there are different tables and people can go and explore and sit at a different table. It's kind of more specific inside that topic. So really make sure kind of what you'll be aware of what kind of it is. Kristen, I think you might have presented every single one of these types. What do you think about selecting the presentation type and how it fits to your session?
I definitely love all of the different types. And I will say that I remember several years ago, I think it was when the theater sessions were kind of new. And I think you emailed me and said, hey, we're going to switch this one from a regular to a theater. And at first I was like, oh, I was really excited about that. And I don't even know what this theater is. But again, I'm always up for an adventure. So I responded, okay, sounds great. And, and again, I really didn't quite know what I was doing. And when I got there, I loved it. Like, I was like, I think I enjoyed the theater session more than some of my other sessions because people were just like in and out, and like you would see people walking by and then they would just stop and listen, and you're like, that person just wasn't even coming here, and now they're sitting down and taking a seat and joining in the conversation. So all of the different formats are great, and don't be nervous or scared to put in for one that you've never done. It's going to turn out well, and just jump in and try it. And I definitely have read and evaluated for multiple different conferences, state, national, global level. And I personally just want to say that words matter. and to really think about what you're saying when you submit it. And I'm not saying that anything is wrong, but the more your words can translate what you're really trying to do, the more the person reading it, since they don't know you, they'll have a better, concept in their mind of like, oh, this sounds like something I would like to hear about and a session that I would like to go to. So definitely words matter, and explain yourself. Even if you feel like, okay, this might sound a little funny, just put it in there, because you're just second guessing yourself, and it's probably something that we really need to hear. So I love to tell my teachers that I coach, somebody in the audience needs to hear what you have to say, and you're the only person that can deliver it the way they need to hear it. So definitely that's my word of advice for submitting, and knowing that, we're going to read it blind and not know you. So just put all of that extra stuff in there. I also love when people refer to the ISTE standards, whether it's for teachers, for administrators, for coaches, for students, just putting that in there and having that as something that you're going to cover and translate back. Because as a teacher, I've done many different things in my district. I'm an educator, I'm a coach, but district level, school level, we all need to go back to a standard. That's just how education is. So adding those in there is super helpful. And that's all I have.
No, that's fabulous. And I think Matt has done a great job in the past of telling people, let somebody who doesn't know you read your submission, because you think and assume that you're saying the things that you already know, but it might not be in those words. So I appreciate that advice. I want to also say, Kristen, it was a good question here. Are any of the formats meant for any specific track? And the answer is no. We have theater presentations for every track. We have showcase for every track. So a lot of times I will say the leadership roundtables, a lot of our administrators like that format. They're used to having some tighter knit conversations where they're hearing about implementations and they want to kind of deep dive. It actually reminds me of the old fashioned poster sessions where you get to have more in-depth conversation. And if you're really trying to implement something in a district or a school, I find that those people like those more in-depth conversations as well. So they're definitely none of them are, meant for one or the other. You can probably learn something in every single format. I really liked your advice there, Kristen. I already talked a little bit about these proposal requirements, the email address. Definitely, please don't use your school one. Use your personal ones that you're checking it all the time. And then the title and the session description we talked about. When you're checking off and making the selections for your sessions, you do need to tell us what content areas you're going to cover. We give you that choice. And then also what curriculum areas. So again, this information is helping attendees know if this is something that they're looking for. So the more information we can get about your session and presentation, and we can share that, the better. So we do ask different, categories of information. So once you get through the form while you're working, I'll tell you two things. You can save it as you go and come back to it, or you can submit it at the end, right? If you decide to save it as you go, you will get an email that'll say you're not quite finished, and here's your login and password to come back and finish before June the 2nd. If you do hit submit, then you're going to get back the information, an email also with a login that says you can go in and make changes. So if you submit today or tonight, you can go back and continue to update that submission all the way up until June the 2nd. Okay, you can go in and make changes. You can add co-presenters. You can edit it. Okay, so when you come back to the FETC webpage and you click on Speak at FETC, there's actually two different portals. One is where you apply the RFP, the request for proposals. The other one is the application center. So the application center are ones that have already been submitted, but you're going to go back in and change, or you want to check on it. And that's the easiest way to add co-presenters, is in that application center. So the link will be in the email. But also just know you still have access to making changes until June the 2nd. The most common question I get in the whole universe is, how do I add co-presenters? So if you don't do it when you're completing the application the first time, you can add them later. You can add them in the fall after you're accepted. You don't have to have them added up front. But if you do, you just go right back in that application center. You click on the little icon next to the title, the edit one is with the pencil, and then you click on the one that has the person, and that's how you add it. And you get the same information boxes as you get for yourself. So it really is a lot easier than people think to add co-presenters. Sometimes they're just not sure what those icons are. As always, you can always email our staff at edtechspeaker@etcnetwork.com. That's the one email that we put on every single thing. And we are answering those questions almost around the clock right now. A lot of questions are coming in, but we definitely want to make sure that we answer all your questions and help you as we're going through. The last thing I'm going to really focus in on here, and thank you for your time. I know we've run a little over, just so much to share, is the scoring rubric. So we do have teams of people that are, from each of the different tracks who are helping to score. Every thing is scored at least 3 times. So 3 different sets of eyes will see every different application. And here's what we ask them to look at. We want them to look at, is this a topic of interest to attendees? Okay, really important. It seems like something that you might look past, but are we interested in this? Is it something we're interested in? If you want to talk about a technology that might be 20 or 30 years old, it might not be something people are interested in. So that's important to us. Is it current? Is it addressing the current needs in schools? Or is it something that's a cutting edge topic? So we want there to be some currency to it. We don't want you to say, oh, 5 years ago, I tried this, or 10 years ago. We want it to be something that's helpful now. As we all know, students are all different, and we're dealing with some very different changes in behavior and wellness and the ways of thinking and attendance. Students now are not the same as they were 5 years ago. So we definitely want it to be current. We definitely are looking at the content of the presentation. That's the most important piece, or the most weighted. And then, of course, the relevance. Just like our students want relevant content in schools now, we also want relevance at FETC. So that's important to us. We also want to know if it's research-based. Now, this doesn't have to be a fully conducted PhD, but, like we talked about earlier, teachers, every single day, you are all action researchers. You're seeing what works in your classroom. And so we want to just know that this is something you've tried. Please do not submit a process or a program or an app that you have not tried yourself. That's really dangerous. And we don't want to be in a situation where you're touting something that may not have actually, worked with students or in school. So we definitely want that. And then, of course, the implementation piece, which I think I've probably harped on that a lot, but making sure that, what you're suggesting and doing can be implemented in a way that other schools can learn from, and that, you're really a model for what we want to do. So I am going to turn it over to Matt and them. I want them to kind of give us some final takeaways here. They are experienced speakers. They filled out these forms in the past. And let us know, Matthew, let's start with you. What advice do you have as an experienced speaker for how to submit your very best proposal?
I think one of the things we haven't really touched on tonight, although we've been around it a lot, is have fun. You're going to Florida. You're going to this great event. What is it that you're going to share that you're going to enjoy? Because if you are selected, you're going to have to build the presentation. You're going to have to stand up in front of people. So whatever it is, make sure you enjoy it. Have fun, because your enthusiasm will just ooze out into the room. So make sure when the proposal you're writing is, you're going to have fun with it. And sometimes people put in a proposal like, oh, I think this event wants to hear this, whatever this is. Share something you're going to enjoy. And the second tip is challenge yourself, because part of the learning is you are going to build content, you're going to have to share content, and you're going to have to answer questions. So challenge yourself a little bit too, where you are pushing yourself to be a learner, because everyone that comes there, if you're a presenter, if you're a participant, if you're a solution provider, you're going to leave feeling empowered. So have fun and challenge yourself.
That's awesome. All right, Kristen, words of advice? or
Yes,
more words of advice?
I would say be yourself. You are an amazing person who knows about whatever topic you're going to submit. So make it be authentic and share, what you're passionate about, because that automatically will make you excited to share if you're already passionate about that topic. And just, I would definitely say that whether yours is accepted or not, like that's huge that you even submitted. So, and everybody in the room could stand up and do a presentation, and that, if you get accepted or you don't, at least you took the step to submit it. And that's a huge accomplishment in and of itself. And just to submit things that you want to learn about. You already know about it, but like if it's something that you want to know about as well, or do you want to know more about it, that kind of thing. What can you add to your submission once you've submitted it that, maybe something brand new comes out? Can you add that in, that kind of thing. So I'm always updating and redoing and adding in, a different way to look at a particular tool or device, or a different way to use it, or can you smash some things together? So that's mine.
No, I love that point. And also the fact that you're putting in an application in June for something that's 6 months later. And as what, I already said things are volcanic and erupting. Really, in 6 months, things could be even more different, right? So you have to be ready to kind of be a little bit adaptable and flexible and add to that. So I love it that it's a topic that you love as much as you want to share. All right, Neil, your sage advice?
Yeah, just two things. Share your journey. So and it doesn't have to be the golden brick road. Like it's like, please show behind the curtain, show all the things of like, this is where I stepped in it. And this is kind of what you may have to be thinking about. We had some unintended, I'll be honest with you, it seemed to work real well at this grade level, but maybe not this one. Or, some of the tech concerns you talked about, cybersecurity kind of raised. And so we had to slow down on that. And so share kind of the journey along with it, with the lessons learned. And again, that may be outside of what you maybe did, but that's okay. Like share about that. And maybe that's where you draw in people from your district to be part of the panel. And then the second one would be this idea of like, and this is the application part, but I'm going to share it with the presentation, but you have to begin with the end in mind sort of thing. But like, don't just tell, like show. So as you're kind of thinking about that, and Jen kind of shared, like, you'll be clicking on certain apps or devices, hardware, software, whatever it is, like you can talk about the thing, or you can actually let people be in a place of being in it. When Matt talked about the idea of, what is that actionable thing they'll be able to take away? Like if you think it's about listing 50,000 apps, and you think that you're giving that and you're being helpful and supportive, they've just drank from the fire hose. If it's more of like, we're going to deep dive into, and I'm going to give you time to play with it a little bit, or at least create or set up your account and play in it, and I'm going to show you a couple things, and then they can walk out with it, it's going to be more beneficial. That's happened to you. So be in that place and space of being okay with that.
Yeah. And I love that idea that really we want the presentations at FETC to be role models for the way we would hope that education is looking in classrooms. We want it to be interactive and student-centered, and we want to be, working throughout the entire presentation, not just sitting there. So a lot of times people will say, what am I looking at when I am session rooms? And I very rarely look at the front or the speaker. I'm always looking at the attendees. What are the attendees doing? Are they enjoying the presentation? Are they engaged? That's the most important part. So we're servicing the attendees just like in the classroom, we're servicing the students. So I love that approach of thinking about, role modeling great pedagogy the entire time so that people can go back to their districts and utilize those techniques. That's really important. I mean, even now more than ever. So let me wrap up with a couple of quick points. One is, what is this timeline? And you can find this online as well, but I will let you know all the applications will be in by June the 2nd. And then we start a massive scoring process that takes a couple of months. Plus in the summer, people are on vacation, they're at different times. And so the summer is really busy for us. And then we will be issuing our invitations in September. It's typically late September. That's because we'll actually accept them and then we'll schedule them. So when you get the acceptances, well, you'll actually have the date, the time, what it's going to be, where it's going to be, and everything. So expect that at the end of September. All of it's done via email as well. And then, of course, our live event is next January. And again, here's that email again. We use one email for all of our communication. So I definitely want to make sure you're aware of that. It's online as well. I did note there's 2 questions in here that we didn't address. One is CTE. Yes, we have lots of sessions on CTE. As a matter of fact, one of our featured speakers this year is a director of CTE from Pennsylvania, which I'm really excited about. And the other question was about besides the length, how do we compare concurrent session and theater? So the theater sessions are actually held on the expo floor. Our expo hall has 450 companies and 6 different staging areas. So we do have stages there that are more open. They still have a lectern. They still have a screen. You still can present lecture style. It's just on the expo floor, whereas a concurrent session is held in a room upstairs. So there's lots of different ways to present information. So I wanted to make sure and tackle those 2 questions and make sure we've answered what everybody needed to know for tonight. So just as a final reminder, it's definitely the final deadline is that Sunday, June the 2nd. So I definitely don't want you to forget that or miss that timeline and have to wait a whole nother year. So we definitely want you to know that. The other question I've been getting, which is from posting on social media, is people have been asking me about our FETC hats. And I have a hat today for all 3 of you as a thank you for participating. But you can actually order these from online. There's a local store. We love to support local who actually embroiders these. It's a really nice embroidery. So if you want to buy your own FETC hat, that's just a shameless plug. You've seen these hats all around social media. And so we'd love for you to be a part of our FETC, hat family. So I did trucker hats this year because we're on the road to FETC, which is our webinar. And we'll have our next webinar next week, as a matter of fact. So again, I'm so grateful to everybody for coming and joining us today. And also, I want to value your time, but I definitely wanted to get through all the great points. Our registration opens soon. And so we're really excited and we are appreciative. So keep the questions coming. We're happy to answer. I see Matthew in here has been willing to mentor people and give people feedback, which is amazing. So definitely this year. Oh, one last question just popped up. How many sessions do we accept? Well, we typically accept around 600 sessions and 250 workshops. So that's a range, but that's about what it is based on the schedule going from the 14th to the 17th. And you can see the schedule at a glance online now. It's already posted on the FETC page. The pre-conference events and workshops are on the 14th. Opening day is the 15th. Sessions again in workshops 16th and 17th. So please check that out. There's a keynote each day. But I'm always wanting to answer every single question I get. So to the very last minute. But I appreciate all 3 of you. I can't thank you enough for your dedicating your time.
Thanks for having us.
Servant leaders, and I appreciate you. And have a great night, everybody. I hope to see you all at FETC. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.